Good morning again. I hope you all enjoyed the networking. Welcome to the main event. Just to expand on what Christina touched upon on the Design Development and Construction Committee, approximately 2 years back, the Chamber reformed and re-energized the Construction and Infrastructure Group under this new title. This group, as you know, is an innovative, collaborative committee, and that brings industry leaders like yourself, both small businesses, medium and large businesses in the fields of construction, engineering, infrastructure design, and land use. And our goal is to make sure we are providing not only a platform for networking, but also giving you key updates on infrastructure projects in our region. Some of our past events, which I know many of you attended, included the presentations on the new SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, the Sepulveda Transit Corridor project. We had an engaging panel on public-private partnership. And back in October, which was our last event, the new updates on the new midfield satellite concourse at LAX. So really a great space to know what's happening in our region and get to know more industry leaders. So let me start by giving a special thanks to our sponsors this morning. First and foremost, Los Angeles World Airports. Okay, I'll pause for a second as I hear some conversation in the background. Okay, great. So again, I would like to acknowledge Los Angeles World Airports for their support of this event. Without their generous support, this would not have happened. We would also like to acknowledge the generosity of our gold sponsors, Jacobs. Thanks to Ron Siki, Jared Moore, and the team at Jacobs. Jacobs has committed to sponsoring all the DDC events for 2021, so thank you. Tudor Perini Corporation, our other gold sponsor, thanks to Bill Palmer, as well as Michael Kershaw at Tudor Perini Building Corporation. It's so great to see you involved and be so engaged with the Chamber. Parsons Corporation, I have a soft spot for this team. Thanks to Lisa Maroth, Mark Hawley, and the team for your continued support of the Chamber. Thank you, Swinnerton Builders. Special thanks to Rick Wan, Kevin Hemrick, and the team at Swinnerton. Lastly, our silver sponsors, Burns Engineering. Thank you to Ravi Singh and everyone at Burns for your continued support. Burns also has stepped up to sponsor all the Chamber's DDC events for 2021. Thanks, Ravi. Again, lastly, silver sponsors H&TB. I appreciate my DDC co-chair, James Long, Yvonne Bilhausen, and Tony Gonzalez. Thanks for your support. And all of you who, especially those who made the long commute from your bedrooms to your office spaces, thank you. The Chamber is so grateful that you all joined us. Almost 100 participants, how exciting. So let me start with introducing our speakers today. We have Rockstar Group from LAWA on the LAMP program. First, let me introduce Mr. Jake Adams, Deputy Executive Director of LAMP at Los Angeles World Airport. Good morning, Jake. Jake Adams was appointed DED at Los Angeles World Airports in November 2018 and is currently serving as the Program Executive for LAWA's $5.5 billion Landside Access Modernization Program. Jake has over 26 years of experience in the development and delivery of airport and heavy civil infrastructure programs. For those of you who have worked with Jake, you all can agree, Jake is a fantastic leader and a calming force in this extremely exciting and energized program that is LAMP. Next, we have Mark Hawley. Mark Hawley is a Vice President with Parsons Corporation. I'm very proud to call Mark a friend, and is currently the Program Director for Parsons Project Management Contract at LAX. Under this contract, Parsons provides specialist support for the Landside Access Modernization Program. Notably on LAMP, Mark is LAWA's client representative for the Automated People Mover project. Good morning, Mark, and welcome. Third, we have Fadi Nassar, who has spent almost 25 years in the design and construction of major transportation, economic, and healthcare projects. Fadi's diversified project management experience spans from the conceptual planning, programming, and procurement phases to the delivery of the project, to the closeout of mostly design-build and alternative delivery projects. Fadi currently serves as a project manager on the Consolidated rental car or the Conrack facility. And joining them is Andy Carpenter. Andy Carpenter is an expert in transportation and civil design management, having served as a lead engineer and project manager on numerous airfield, civil, and infrastructure projects on the West Coast. He has successfully designed and managed airfield runway and taxiway improvement projects at LAX, Boeing Field, Oakland International Airport, as well as numerous general aviation airfields in the Seattle, Washington area. And he is currently serving as the project manager on the Intermodal Transportation Facility West. Great to have all four of you, and over to our fantastic presentation.
Okay, well, I'm going to take that silence as a cue that it's my turn to talk now. So, Christina, can you hear me? Is everything working okay?
It's working perfectly.
Wonderful. All right. Well, I just wanted to first of all say thank you to Christina and to Chad for allowing us to come here today to share a little bit about the LAMP program with you, and to most importantly give you an update on how things are going. We and the team here are always excited to come share these things with you guys, and it's certainly been a pleasure this morning. It was also a pleasure to get to catch up with quite a few of you this morning as members of the chamber. And the one thing I did realize is that actually many of you know just as much as I do about the LAMP program. And I have to say that that's in part due to Stephanie Sampson, who is our LAMP communications director. And she has done an amazing job to keep all of our stakeholders informed. So if we could go to the next slide. Great. Well, one back, but that's okay. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time because you guys know LAMP so well. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time going over kind of the reasons why we did LAMP and what LAMP contains, because I really want to save some time for the project managers to be able to do a deeper dive on the updates. But the current phase of LAMP obviously includes the automated people mover, our consolidated rental car facility, our intermodal transportation facility west, and what we call RU, which is a whole series of roadway utilities and enabling projects. Next slide. And certainly one of the most challenging things about the LAMP program is that it literally spans from the front door of Tom Bradley all the way out to the 405 freeway. And right now, as we speak, with the exception of 2 areas, we have construction going in that entire 2.5 mile run. The only 2 places we don't have construction right now are the APM crossing over Sepulveda and the APM crossing over Century Boulevard. Next slide. So Stephanie, let's go ahead. This is actually a time-lapse video that Stephanie and the team have put together, and we'll get this going here. And this actually started back in May. So it gives you a pretty good timeline of the past 8 months. And it's really been just amazing how much construction has occurred over the past 8 months. And this is one particular location that's looking at the APM guideway that's crossing 96 and 98th Street before it turns east towards Airport Boulevard. But not only guideway construction, it's showing the early stages of the station. And also in the background there, you can see all 4 levels of the ITF West structure coming up. And really the amazing thing to me has been that how fast the past 8 months, how much work has been able to be accomplished, especially in light of the fact that we've been in this global pandemic. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mark Hawley, again, our project manager for the APM, who will do a little bit of a deeper dive into the automated people mover. So take it away, Mark.
Thanks, Jake, and thanks to the LAX Coastal Chamber for the invitation to come here today. We're delighted to be here to report on the progress. I think you've all seen now renderings and images of construction, and we're excited to see the APM system and all the components of LAMP taking shape. So just in the rendering in front of you, you can see the trains traversing around the theme building, heading into what will be the future center CTA station. And then in the distance in the top right, there's the CTA West station that will interface with, will be adjacent to or opposite to Tom Bradley. So next slide, please. Overall, there's 2.25 miles of elevated guideway structure. If we could go back one, please, Stephanie. With 6 stations, 3 in the central terminal area, CTA West, CTA Center, and CTA East, serving the large volume of terminals there and passengers there in the CTA. Forward one, please, Stephanie. And then moving out eastward, we have the ITF West station, which interfaces with the ITF Intermodal Transfer Facility. And then ITF East will be interfacing at the AMC Metro station. And then the last station is the Consolidated Rental Car Facility. The trains will operate 24/7. They're on 2-minute, 15-second headways. So that equates to a roughly 5,500 passengers per hour per direction. There's 2,400 linear meters of new pedestrian bridge walkways also being constructed in the CTA area to take you from those 3 stations to the terminals. Next slide, please. The maintenance and storage facility is really taking shape, and this is an actual photo of the building now. So you can see it's fully enclosed. There's a large excitement of work going on inside, getting ready for the APM train deliveries. It's a 150,000 square foot facility. We'll have 1 megawatts of solar power energy generated. And is striving for LEED Gold accreditation. Next slide, please. Here's some photos, recent photos of the APM cars in manufacture. The cars are Bombardier Innovia APM 300 system vehicles, and they're being assembled in Pittsburgh right now. These are some of the cars now. We're working on the 4th car. There will be 44 cars delivered under this project in total. 9 cars, 36 cars, 9 times 4 is 4-car trains will be operating continuously 24/7, depending on the peak time. 1 car or 4 trains will be in hot standby, ready to swap in if any of the car trains has a problem. And one 4-car train will be in routine maintenance. So that gives you the 44 total vehicles that are being procured for this program. Next slide, please. The photo on the left is one of the last CIDH cast-in drilled holes being constructed on the program. And we're very proud to tell you that all of the foundations are now complete for the entire length of the guideway. So that's a major milestone on the project. All the underground work is done. Columns are 80% complete, and you can see those all the way along the length, mostly with false work now. And as Jake said, still working on to cross Century and to cross Sepulveda. But you can see now all the work is up in the air, and it's exciting times in the field. Next slide, please. Progress at the West CTA opposite Tibet You can see the guideway segments there, the box girder sections coming into the CTA West station on the left. And CTA Center now is above the parking structure, and you can see it taking shape. And then a very iconic picture of CTA East Station looking westward towards the theme building and the air traffic control tower, again, up at the station level. So great to see so much progress now all the way along the length of the 2.25 mile guideway. Next slide, please. And then, as we said, guideway structures, and as Jake showed in the video earlier, last segments to go across Century Boulevard here with the false work coming soon, and segmental construction will go across Sepulveda. ITF East Station on your right, and then crossing the Metro Southwest Yards and the ITF East Station being constructed, and then further over to the right in the distance on the right-hand photo is the Conrack building where the Conrack station will ultimately connect to the Conrack facility. So with that, I'll hand it over to Fadi.
Thanks, Mark. Good morning. So yeah, the Conrack is, as you guys know, and Jake mentioned, you probably know much more than anybody here. It's at the end of the APM line or the beginning as you head towards LAX. So this is right off the 405 freeway. So you see, go back to the rendering, please, just 1 second. I wanted to position for some of us. Thanks, Stephanie. So you see a rendering here of the west face of the facility as the train is entering the station on the 5th level. So you enter that roof level, basically. And then there's direct access to the customer service buildings there. And as you may know, it's basically consolidating most of you have the 3 major companies with the 10 or so brands, as well as 3 independent operators. And then below, you could see that Bus Plaza along Concourse Way provides a connection to the facility for other non-concessionaires. The rendering is not showing it here really well, but definitely one of the key things is the APM station being seamlessly inside the Conrack facility. And a lot of coordination has been ongoing and still ongoing to achieve such a complex interface. As you know, the systems have to be integrated yet separated, and also there's high sensitivity for the track, settlement tolerances, et cetera. So quite a lot of engineering and construction coordination needs to be going on. Thanks, next please. Next slide, thanks. So yeah, you could see here, I'm not gonna read all the square footage numbers, but it's pretty large facilities. And it gives you an idea of the massiveness of the task at hand. So to locate you a little bit again, 405 is to your east right here. And then that concourse that we just talked about is towards the west. It connects the Arbor Vitae to the north, and then to the south, we don't see that 98th Street. That will be the other parallel road to Arbor Vitae. Of note here is a major DWP substation to the north, giving us about 14 megawatts, I believe, when it opened in 2023. And the layout's been designed for future expansion as we electrify the rental car fleet, be able to basically more than double the capacity. I think we can add another 17 megawatts to support future operation electrical needs. We also have, just like in Mark's the MSNF facility, we have a substantial photovoltaic setup with over 5 megawatts of power provided. On top of that QTA building to the east, that will be solar, as well as the parking complex you don't see here. It'll be to the south of that area. You can also see different stages of construction in that aerial here. And I've noticed the concrete batch plant to the southwest and has been key in supporting the fast concrete placement. Over 1,000 people at any time right now on site. So it's pretty good. Take a look at the next slide, see a little bit more the vertical progress of construction and where we're at. Again, we're looking north here, and You have over 100 acres, massive, and then a significant roadway and infrastructure backbone for it. Notice we have about 6 cranes up, and I believe a 7th is coming up this week, as I understand it. But we're deep in concrete placement then. Just to give you some stats on that, we've placed to date about 70% of the building concrete. So that's about 186,000 cubic yard out of a total of 265K. And then to position you again, as we looked at, the 405 is to the right of that picture, obviously. So that QTA building is almost 90% complete concrete wide. And you could see in the back, and you probably saw better in the aerial, that the roofing is ongoing as we are fast tracking the construction here. In the middle at the idle storage area, picking up from the first level, and then on the left is definitely building up the last 5th floor of the rent-ready return building. Overall, we're at over 70% complete, like I mentioned on that. I don't know if you can see in the far left, but the guide rail supports that Mark talked about, those are, yeah, thank you, Stephanie, for pointing them out as they enter the building. We can get to the next slide, please. So here we're looking again east towards the 405, basically. You got that ready return building with a station terminating on the plaza on the roof with a customer service building. Behind it was that idle storage, then QTA building, and then behind it is the 405 to orient yourself. And then you could see Concourse Way below. Obviously, the whole focus of that building, as you guys may know, is removing 3,200 rental car trips from rental shuttle trips from the CTA, and replacing them with that one people mover station. So it's quite a good improvement to passenger experience in our belief. And to support that whole operation, obviously, we need a robust QTA facility, which I'll talk about a little bit on the next slide, please. Yeah, that view of that QTA, basically it's a large building in its own right, a significant amount of technical support in it, and fuel nozzles, car wash bay, maintenance bays. I would say not to forget the flexibility of the building and the fact that as we get more electrified, the infrastructure is ready to support the EV charging as demand is scaling up. Thanks. On to you, Andy.
All right, well, I just want to thank the chamber and for the opportunity to provide a little snapshot of where we're at with this great project. So it's my honor to present to you all this morning. Just a little note that the image in the background of my headshot is actually a shot of one of our workers who took a shot one of the mornings. We had one of those double rainbows on the deck. So just a little background of how I ended up here at LAMP. I've had the privilege of working on many airfield projects as the lead designer for some of the runways and taxiways here at LAX. But when I had the opportunity when an opportunity presented itself to get on board with LAMP, I jumped at it to be part of this great program. So for the past 3.5 years, my focus has been entirely on the ITF West, or Intermodal Transportation Facility. And as you'll see in the upcoming slides, ITF West is much more than simply another parking structure at LAX. Rather, it's a state-of-the-art linkage to the CTA via our great guideway and the automated people mover. Just as a Conrack is going to be primarily used for out-of-town and business travel, you can keep by our out-of-town and business travelers. The ITF West is going to be that familiar and inviting front door for many of us that call Los Angeles home. So I'm really excited to join with my fellow SoCal residents to use the ITF West and make it the first stop from my vacations and make it the kind of my welcome on my return home. So as we walk through, I want to highlight a few items of our design, and that you'll see some of the unique passenger experience amenities that our designers took beauty and elegance to incorporate into the design. We also want to look at the schedule and how we partnered with some of our city agencies to make this project a reality and deliver this complex structure as part of the LAMP program here. So let's journey with us together. And on this first slide, you can just see kind of the size of it. If you take a snapshot of the ground and you imagine 16 acres, that's where the project site is. Within that 16-acre site, 10 acres represents the footprint of ITF West. So it's a large facility. It's roughly 900 feet long by 500 feet wide. And you can see it's trisected by these two intermediate light wells. And those are seismically separating the building into 6 unique building structures. The 4th floor is open to the sky, and it will offer travelers their closest and most dramatic views of both oncoming traffic. They'll also have views to the west to see the north field of the runways. And as you can see, kind of obscured in the background, you can even see the Hollywood sign and the Griffith Observatory as you're up there on clear days. The concrete and steel framing, as it mentions here, is 72,000 cubic yards of concrete and 5,500 tons of rebar. That's equivalent to pouring a 96-story high-rise building right there on that footprint. So buried within that 5.5-inch deck is over 136 miles of conduit that service our 9 integrated systems of low voltage and power systems that include Wi-Fi, cellular distributed antennas, emergency response frequencies, paging, EV. We also have smart parking, and those are just to name a few of the systems that are integrated in that massive structure. And speaking of embedment, before a single yard of concrete was poured, the team installed hundreds of feet of these underground water quality vaults that will discharge into the storm drain system. You want to click onto the next slide there. In our next slide, we just focus on primarily the public amenities, and this is just a very small snapshot of what we have here. It will aid in the overall passenger experience. From our vertical circulation, we have these 3 elevator cores that are painted in yellow, and 2 escalator banks that provide an intuitive color palette just to provide wayfinding and the layout, so it's easier for the public to travel and traverse this massive structure. The design team, they focused on features that would enhance the aesthetic appeal while prioritizing functionality paired with that elegance. So it's not just simply a parking garage where you just go and park. There's an intuitive feel, and the architectural language speaks of the directionality of where you need to head as you're entering over to the APM. That's your ultimate destination as you get to the CTA. As I mentioned earlier, those light wells are a necessary seismic separation, but instead of just adding a light well, the design team incorporated these escalator banks, which cascade all the way down from the 4th floor to the 1st floor. And that provides, again, that vertical circulation. And instead of covering the escalators with some sort of opaque roof, the team designed a steel structure, as you see those columns right there, but it has a clear canopy to take advantage of the warm weather here we have in California and the fantastic climate. What distinguishes this parking garage from any other remote garage is the linkage with the actual APM station. So scheduled to arrive in just a few short months, we're going to have 2 pedestrian walkways that will link the ITF West facility to the CTA. That's when they're scheduled to arrive, and we'll make that tie-in from a construction standpoint. Stretching overhead from those 2 guideway bridges, we're actually going to have a plaza that will link on at grade. So there'll be these 2 modes of transportation between the 2 facilities. As far as the facade treatment, this is just another example here that we showcase an example of integrating LAWA and the LAMP elements as one cohesive unit, so that when you arrive at the ITF West facility, you are arriving at LAX. Rather than this being a standalone facility, this showcases our gorgeous facade treatment with vertical fins and interior perforated panels at locations that are key around the perimeter. As the famous theme building is at the center of the airfield, our vision is that the ITF West will be, with the other LAMP facilities, become synonymous with efficient travel and a welcoming and familiar feel. We're so excited to see this, again, become a reality. This was a vision that many had. And on our last slide, I just want to highlight a little bit of our schedule, not simply the end date, but where we came from in these few short years. Just to go back in time, in September of 2018, we finalized our contract with Swinnerton Builders and began the rapid design build process. But by July of 2019, we celebrated groundbreaking in that Lot C, as it used to be, as many of you all know, and started work in preparation of what would be just a whirlwind of construction in the subsequent 18 months until now. By November of 2019, the team victoriously, they celebrated their first concrete slab on grade pour And that would again mark the first of 96 slab or deck pours. And by October of 2020, the team championed the last deck pour and topped out a celebration just 11 months after a huge stalwart performance. But I would be remiss if I wouldn't point out this schedule would not have been possible without the tireless work effort of our design build team in Swinnerton and their design partners, as well as with our third party. That was one of the unique features that this program had as a way to incorporate our design team with all the AHJs, with the authorities having jurisdiction, that the DBSs of the world, the BOEs, those that actually made this possible with all the permitting and plan check approvals. It was a very tireless effort, and I would say a very, very successful one as we partnered with our city agencies. Now, as we've rounded the corner to 2021, we look forward to becoming again that beautiful front door of your favorite airport. As you begin your honeymoon or launch your new business endeavor to a faraway city, our hope is that ITF West becomes your go-to as you start or end your journey. So thanks for allowing us to share with this little snapshot of where we are at the ITF facility and some of the other LAMP projects. And we look forward to bringing modernization to LAX. I'd like to now, at this time, just turn our presentation over to Jake, our program executive, as he's going to cover some of the RU elements.
Great. Well, thank you, Andy, and excuse me. And certainly the fourth component of LAMP is definitely not the sexiest part of LAMP, but it definitely is probably the most critical piece. And over the past 4 years, it's certainly been the most complex and probably the most impactful to the normal outside community. But Dan McKelvey is our project manager for what we call the RU element, which stands for Roadway Utilities and Enabling. And Dan's not with us today, but I'm going to try to fill his big shoes here quickly. But Dan and the team have done a great job over the past 3 years. Just this past summer, they completed the first phase of the enabling projects. They wrapped up 38 projects to the tune of about $300 million worth. And then just late last year, we awarded the next phase of the enabling work to Skanska. And that's about $335 million with at least 19 individual projects. A couple of the big ones that you probably will recognize is that we're going to finish, and I should say the design is finished, but Skanska is actually going to build the 98th Street extension, which is going to extend 98th Street from Blanca all the way out to the 405 freeway. And then we also have a series of improvements at the on-ramps at the 405 freeway. And then we have a significant number of CTA infrastructure improvements for utilities that's going to be undertaken by this contract. So really excited to get going with our new partners in Skanska on this particular project. Next slide. I also wanted to touch base and just let you know kind of how LAMP is doing relative to business and workforce inclusion, and all is going well and on a whole. And I apologize for this spreadsheet's a little hard to read, but as a whole, all of our contractors and developers are fulfilling all of the commitments that were made during their procurements. One area that we have seen some slight underperformance has been on the design, surprisingly. But the good news is that most of our projects still have a bit of civil and roadway design left to do. So we're optimistic that we're going to make up for some of those shortfalls. But what we're really excited to see, and it doesn't show ITF West here, but ITF West, APM, Conrac, and the former LULA projects, they all exceeded our local worker requirement. And that's a big deal. Local worker participation continues to be a top priority for LAWA. And as we're trying to live up to our mayor's commitment, who always says, we want Los Angelinos building the future of Los Angeles. So we're doing a good job right now of making sure that happens. Next slide. So obviously we mentioned the elephant in the room a little earlier. COVID has had, just an unbelievable impact on all of us. Certainly in our personal lives and certainly in our country and certainly the aviation industry as a whole. And this here is just a snapshot. We do track all of the COVID cases that are reported to us on our capital improvement projects. So this is just a snapshot of, and I would discount January because that is only one day in January. So we were doing pretty well, but kind of like the rest of the local environment here, November and December, we had an alarming trend of increase in COVID cases. And unfortunately, that is continuing through January. Next slide. And we also track LAMP individually. And as you can see, the blue bars are our average workers per day. And the red bars are the number of new cases that were reported for that individual month. And again, alarmingly, the last 2 months have been quite high compared to what we'd experienced previously. But I would say for the most part, considering that we've got, on average now about 1,700 workers per day, we've been relatively fortunate. And I think part of that is due to the fact that LAMP during this 8-month period, with most of our construction has been outdoors. We're starting to close in some areas now, but some of our other programs like the terminal programs and MSC, they've had a much greater challenge with working in close proximity. Next slide. So there have been quite a few challenges, as I'm sure you can imagine. Working remotely has certainly been one of them. And I'd say thanks to Tony Kirby, he complimented me in the one-on-one sessions earlier that he thought LAWA did a really good job of transitioning to the remote work environment. But I'm sure if he listened to Mark and Fadi and Andy, it was not a quick process and it was rather painful. But as as an operating airport, we really had very little need for telecommuting. We had no formal telecommuting policy. So it took a little while to get up and running, but I do have to commend our IT department. They worked constant nonstop hours to get our entire organization up and running. And since that point, it's been incredibly effective. And I certainly see that continuing into the near future. Just some of the other benefits is I fought with the city attorney for years about trying to get approval of electronic signatures. It's a shame it took a global pandemic to make that happen, but we finally got there. And just some of the other benefits of, moving towards electronic data storage. We're doing all of our procurements online now. We're doing all of our interviews online now. And we've even started to do a few construction inspections that have been virtual as well. So definitely a silver lining there. With respect to job site safety, this was an incredible challenge early on. I think all of our partners and contractors have done a great job getting the requirements in place. It certainly had been confusing at times with differing requirements from both the CDC and the state. But I think all of our construction partners have done an excellent job in getting our job sites as safe as they can possibly be. With respect to labor impacts, we certainly have had a few. I would say nearly every trade on the LAMP project has been affected at some point by COVID. It's seemingly that carpenters and electricians were probably the most impacted, and there were several delays to a couple of our jobs due to lack of those trade professionals. And to a lesser extent, we've had some welders and false work crews and some of our CM office staff that have been impacted as well. Supply chain issues, I skipped over that one, but we've certainly had some, but in the big picture, I'm actually been pleasantly surprised that it is, we've not had the delays that I would have expected. ITF West had no impacts getting all of their elevators and escalators. We've had a little bit of a fly ash supply on the APM project. That did cause us a little bit of problems, as well as some of the other longer lead items, electrical switchgear, some of our larger seismic bearings, and even some of the automated people mover parts that are all being collected and assembled in Pittsburgh. So, but again, I'm surprised and pleasantly surprised that it hasn't been as big of an impact. Again, back to the silver lining, it certainly presented us a lot of opportunities due to the reduced number of passengers coming to LAX. We've been able to, in the CTA, do full 24-hour-a-day closures for extended periods of time of Centerway, Themeway, and Lower Westway. And those are roadways that we could not have even contemplated doing that under normal circumstances or back in the old days, as Christina mentioned. But yeah, that has allowed us to do multiple work shifts and try to get ahead of the construction as much as possible. But even outside of the CTA, we have been able to do daytime closures of some of the local roadways just due to the decrease in traffic. So all of that has really helped us to be able to try to stay on schedule. Next slide. One of the other big questions we get besides COVID is how are we doing with our public-private partnerships at LAX? And I think as most of you know, the LAMP program, we have our CONRAC and automated people mover projects are both public-private partnerships. RU is a traditional design build contract, and our ITF West is a progressive design build contract. But really the successes that we've had with PPP at this point, I'd say the first and foremost is just the fact that we were able to do it as a performance-based procurement. That really, led us to a lot of successes, especially in alternative technical concepts, because, that allows the private industry to come up with innovative ideas and options that, frankly, we as LAWA did not consider when we were putting these plans together. So 2 examples of that have been on the CONRAC. It's a large building, it's a large site, it's trying to do a lot of things. Our developer came up with a concept that reduced the overall footprint of that facility. They went 1 floor higher, but freed up in a whole lot of land that was able to be turned back to LAWA for future development. On the APM project, the developer came up with a creative way to do a cantilevered station along Centerway, which allowed us to not have to demolish parking structures P2B and P2A. And as you can imagine, back in 2018, 2019, the loss of those 2 parking structures would have been an unbelievable impact on the parking situation at LAX. So definitely some successes there. Financing, I won't get too much into that, but just to say that the structure of these 2 deals has really made it a lot easier on us as an airport. And it certainly, in my opinion, helped to maintain our high bond rating as well. Life cycle benefits, we're only seeing a little bit into this, and certainly time will tell as this goes on. But certainly having a single entity responsible for the construction of an asset, and then having that asset to be maintained and operated by that same entity, will certainly provide a lot of incentive for them to build a quality product. And we've certainly seen that in some of the design efforts thus far, and certainly in some of the quality control processes that have been implemented. So good stuff there. As far as challenges, I think probably the biggest lesson that we've learned there is that there really is no magic potion inside of this P3 model that avoids, your typical claims. When considering a PPP, if any of you owners out there, you really have to expect that the construction phase is going to be not that much different than a traditional design build contract. That's been our experience thus far. As Andy and some of the other project managers alluded to, underground utilities are always a challenge, and certainly permitting and dealing with a lot of our authorities having jurisdiction are other challenges that we have had to face. And I would say within the P3 contract, we spent a lot of time up front trying to sort out the right balance of risk mitigation and risk assignment for these two activities in particular. And we've had, I would say honestly, limited success with that. So those are two areas that we will, as we go forward and look at potentially doing additional PPPs, we'll be spending a lot of time and trying again to find that right balance of assuming risk. And I think the other piece that I would say is just with respect to equity involvement. P3 has generally been advertised as kind of having an equity overlay that is really above the design builder. But it's been our experience thus far that there's really been little difference between those two entities, and that there's not a whole lot of independent judgment when it comes to that. So that's just a little snapshot. Granted, we're early on into the P3 business here, and I will put a plug in for our progressive design build delivery method. I think by far for the right project, that's a really good delivery method, and it's by far the most collaborative delivery method that we've had experience with. So with that, I would just once again say thank you to everyone for putting up with us this morning and letting us talk about our projects. We live this day in and day out, and it's wonderful to be able to share it with all of you. And I would be remiss if I didn't put a plug out for all of our social media at flylexairport.com. And you can stay in touch with the entire LAMP program and everything else that's going on at the airport. And with that, I'll hand it back to Christina.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to hand it over to Tony Kirby.
Yeah, thank you very much. Great presentation. Really, really covered all of the bases there across the entire program. So we've got about 10 minutes for Q&A. I did post a note here. Anybody's got a question, stick it in the chat. I'll come to you if you're willing to ask it. Put your camera on and ask it. Otherwise, I can ask it for you. But I want to start with a couple that have been posted earlier on. So the whole LAMP program is being built around what is known today, but there's some flexibility being built into the system for things like future T9, for instance. Jake or the others, could you talk about how that has been conceived and how that future development has been built into the current projects?
Yeah, well, I'll start it off. We certainly, from the APM perspective, had an opportunity when we put this procurement out. Obviously, where T9 is going today, there is a long straight section of guideway that has been built. And it was built at that time more for a failure management station, so that it's a long stretch of guideway between the ITF West and the East Station. And in coordination with fire department and all of our other emergency professionals, there was a lot of concern about that limitation and having access to the guideway. So it worked out really well that we have that area there that just lends itself, to a good location for a station. And Mark, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that.
No, I think you covered it, Jake. And so, that section was straightened, worked with the developer to make sure so as not to preclude a future station for Terminal 9 to be constructed as and when it's needed in the future. So yeah, the planning's gone in, and all the provisions are in place for that possible expansion.
Thank you. So there's a few questions coming in now. I'm going to go to, first of all, Alan Coleman. Alan, if you're on, do you want to turn your camera on and ask your question around the Ubers, etc.?
Just, which facility will the Ubers and the like be using? And will it be only drop off or both drop off and pick up?
Steve, that is a wonderful question. And to be honest with you, we don't know yet. And I'll tell you why. We have been in a major planning exercise, working with Uber and Lyft, working with all of the various modes of transportation. There's a big policy decision that needs to be made by the airport, and it's going to be made here in probably the next couple of months. The good news is what we've done in the entire LAMP program is we've kind of built it and designed it for maximum flexibility, because over time, those needs change. I mean, who knew that Uber and Lyft were even going to be a thing, 5 or 6 years ago? So we've tried to design, whether it's ITF West and the rotary in front of it, whether it's the future ITF East rotary location, we've really built it as flexible as possible so that we can kind of adapt to those changes as they come. But like I said, in the next few months, we're going to be making some shorter term decisions about who's going to go where.
Thank you. And I think that answers Lisa Dye's question, who had a similar question. So we'll move on to one from, it's Peter Bush on COVID testing, etc. Do you want to ask the question?
Yeah, hi, Jake. How are you?
Good.
Good. I'm originally from New York. I was a construction manager for the Port Authority at LaGuardia, and at the outbreak of this COVID, we had extensive challenges with the screening of not only the workers but passengers, everything else at the airport. I just wondered how fast you were able to adapt to that and some of the challenges that you face here as well.
Yeah, I would say from the construction side of things, we were pretty quick. I mean, our contractors are big. Most of them are all big national contractors, and everyone was kind of dealing with the same issues across the country. So kudos to all of our contractors and developers who really got up to speed quickly, and we had very, very minimal impact to that. From the airport side of things, I mean, we've put a lot of effort into screening of passengers and providing rapid COVID testing availability for passengers. We've got a lot of effort going on right now trying to establish air bridges, especially on the international side of things. Because LAX, while our domestic numbers are down significantly, it's really our international numbers that we're really, really struggling with. So we're really trying to look at all options for promoting safe travel, both domestically and internationally.
Thanks, Jake.
Thank you. And then we've got one from Alina Di Myceli, I think, around parking rates. Alina, are you on? If not, Alina was asking, do we know the parking rates already, or are those yet to be determined? I assume that's within the ITF facility.
Yeah, and that's a good question, and that's something that our commercial development group is right now working on. Obviously, forecasting demand due to COVID and how quickly the travel industry is going to recover, all of that is being factored into that pricing decision. And again, we'll have something on that pretty shortly, because all of that has to go before our board as well.
Okay, and I assume there'll be some interplay there with the pricing of the garages that will still be available in the CTA, Jake, to I guess persuade you to use ITF rather than driving in, but that option will be there.
That's certainly right, Tony. And but again, it's all about timing, right?
Yep. Yeah. Louise Hirsch, you had a question that's kind of COVID related or viral related. Did you want to ask your question?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. We know that there's going to be another viral outbreak of some type in the future, because we've had other ones in the past, H1N1, Ebola, etc. We know that UVC disinfectant lighting is a good way to mitigate this, but what is LAX on the current projects or in their current terminals doing to mitigate the viral spread at LAX, or like I said, on the people mover, etc.?
Yeah, and Luis, I'm going to apologize, but I'm not the best person to answer that question. We have Mike Christensen, who runs our operations here at LAX, is really the guy who's been tasked with that, and he's following it day to day and staying on top of it. I don't know for a fact what our contractors are doing either, because we've intentionally left that responsibility to them to maintain the safety of their job sites. So sorry I can't give you a better answer on that.
But Mike Christensen is the guy at LAWA to contact.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, we can help find that information, Louise. Steve Helmers got a question that's probably on everybody's mind around the two missing pieces, I guess, on the APM and when they would be built. Steve, do you want to ask your question?
Sure. Yeah, I was just wondering, when the planned dates of construction were for the connection over Century Boulevard, and will that close Century Boulevard westbound? What would be the length of time and impact for businesses that are right along that stretch?
Got it. And I will let you know that that's going to be later this year, but I'll hand it over to Mark to see if he has a little better idea on the timing.
Yeah, it's coming up pretty soon here. Century Boulevard will go first. No, there won't be any closure on Century. So the false work will span across, Steve. So rest assured the traffic will continue, but we've got to span across, and there's one of the light pylons in the center of the road that needs to be removed first so we can get our false work structure and final column up in the middle. And then build the false work bridging across Century Boulevard. Sepulveda will be a bit further on, but you can see work progressing in the knot area in the interchange section with the columns being constructed. That's a segmental construction, so we will be launching from both sides small segmented precast parts of the box girder, and then joining those up in the middle. So that's again later this year, and that will follow the Century Boulevard works.
Great, thank you. And I think we've got time for one more. Now, there's two questions that are very similar, so maybe I'll just read them as a theme from James Frost and Caitlin Bryant, and they're along the lines of how do recently qualified SBE firms or certified small businesses improve our market presence to the main parties and potentially look at opportunities within some of the projects that are already under construction? Is there a way that they can engage with those teams?
Yeah, in fact, Tony, my suggestion for both of them would be to reach out to our business and job resources here at LAWA, in particular, Amber Mishak. She is a wonderful resource and can help folks get engaged with, especially once that the contracts have already been let. She has all of those connections.
Okay, and we can follow up with those details. Okay, it's 9:25. We are going to move into our wrap up now. Just to note that this LAWA has kindly agreed to make this presentation available to everybody who's on this call, so the chamber will distribute that later on. And this session is being recorded as well, so we should be able to provide a link to the recorded presentation. So we thank the LAWA staff for allowing us to do that. For the closing, I'm going to hand over to my colleague within the DDC, James Long at HNTB, to do the wrap up.
Thank you, Tony. And I guess if everyone can, let's unmute ourselves and give a round of applause to Jake, Mark, Fadi, and Andy. That was an excellent presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. Really, that was awesome. Certainly appreciate your perspective on the project and your time that you spent putting together a great presentation. That was really well done there. Also, huge thank you just to LAWA as an organization as a whole. They're an incredible partner to the chamber and frankly, a lot of our businesses here as well. So very much appreciate everything that LAWA is doing for the community and the chamber. Special shout out though to Stephanie Sampson as well, Director of Communications for LAMP at LAWA. Stephanie was instrumental in helping the chamber and then the DDC put together today's event. And she's also with us on the board of directors. So Stephanie, thank you again for helping to set up this today. Also want to say a special thanks to all of our phenomenal sponsors, especially in the current state of affairs, finding firms that are committed to the chamber and our community. It goes a huge way in being able to hold incredible events like this. So again, thank you to our sponsors. The gold sponsors for today's event were Los Angeles World Airports, Jacobs Engineering, Tudor Perini Corporation, Parsons, and Swinnerton. And our silver sponsors were Burns Engineering and HNTB. Thank you again to all those firms and the representatives here today. Know that your contribution, your impact is vital to the chamber and the DDC kind of continuing on and helping present incredible programs like this. So thank you. Also, a special shout out to my other co-chairs here in the Development, Design, and Construction Group, Rashmi and Tony. Thank you guys for leading the charge and letting me ride your coattails. Certainly appreciate it. And I think this is a great group and looking forward to many more years working with you guys putting these awesome events together. And last but not least, certainly Christina Davis, thank you so much for your leadership with the chamber. Yeah, it's incredible. It's been 15 years now with you leading the chamber, and you've done an incredible job. And I certainly appreciate everything you do and your team. Special shout to Chad as well for being our handler and keeping us all in line. None of this would happen without your guys' tireless efforts. So thank you. All right, enough of me talking. We've got this awesome slideshow that we put together. We've got some photos of the construction progress that's going on the LAMP program. So stick around for a few more minutes. Watch as these cool photos roll through. And thank you again, everyone. Really appreciate you guys joining us today, and have an excellent Tuesday and the rest of your week.
Thank you all for coming. We enjoyed having you, and we will see you at the next DDC meeting. Have a great day.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great presentation.
Bye. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Christina, for all your help.
Yeah, I didn't realize that last presentation didn't have sound on it. I looked through the slide.
I put sound on it, so that's weird. So it had some good rock music.
Well,
So-
you know what? I looked at it, I just clicked through it, but I thought it was really well done. If that's the biggest problem we have, that's no problem.
Stephanie's calling here. I'm gonna put her on speaker.